OMG, baby, tell him.
Hey there, welcome to, I'm changing the name. It's called One Take, powered by backers. This is One Take because we're going to do it in one take. I am joined here by Reggie Waterman. Reggie, thank you very much for joining me on the show.
Justin, thank you. And the fact that you changed this the title of your show to One Take, oh boy.
We're gonna do it in one take.
There's a lot of pressure right now.
There's a lot of pressure, no editing. It's pretty much been one take. This is about the 55th episode, I think. But okay. I'm gonna change it, sort of the dynamic, because people were wondering, well, what is Powered by Backers? And what, so I want to make Powered by Backers sort of like, that's the kind of underlying show, but this is the one take version of it, right? So
okay. Perfect.
So we can have other episodes or other directions with other kind of content, right?
Yeah, and it's always good to kind of get that authenticity in terms of getting everything in one take, and it's all natural. It's good.
Right, exactly. Like I'll it's recording right now. I'll edit it in the sense that I'll add sort of your name and stuff, and when we upload it. But literally, this whole video from the clap to the whatever will be as it is, no edits. So anyways, welcome to the show. Welcome to the first ever One Take episode.
Woo! Excited.
Exactly. All right, so I'll do a quick little intro for you, Reggie, so that the audience knows who you are and what you do. So basically, you are the host of Discover Your Other Self. You're a podcaster, director of marketing, brand consultant, workshop facilitator, and I think this is kind of cool because I am as well, father of two.
Yes.
Two what? Boys, girls, boy, girl, girl, boy?
Boy, girl. So
okay.
I have a young strapping man.
How old are the kids?
Oh man, you I don't know if you'd believe it, but I have a 17-year-old and I have a 10-year-old, so 17-year-old son and a 10-year-old.
So he is a young man, literally, I don't even know if he's a young man anymore. Like he's a man, pretty much. Like give him a year, he's legit voting age.
And
drinking in Quebec.
Yes, exactly. Drinking party in Quebec, and he should be paying rent.
Yeah.
That's what he should
do. When does 16 you can leave home? 18 you should start paying for staying at home. Is that how it works?
That's how it works.
I have a 7-year-old, two boys, 7 and 4. So that we'll let them stay for free for a couple more years. They can freeload a little more for.
I like how you said that, a couple more years. So
a couple more, till maybe they're like 10. Yeah. We'll cut them off at that point. Okay. So let's talk a little bit. Okay, so I've joined. Mike Dunn, right?
I do know Mike Dunn.
Yeah, we had Mike on here. Had a great talk with him. About close to a month ago now, but he's doing some great things with 1922. How do you guys know each other?
Well, funny enough, we both worked at Rogers and Bell together.
Okay, perfect. So you were in that same sort of world. Are you still? You're not in that world still, are you? Or what do you do? No. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about. I'm going to start off with the other self because I signed up for it. I got the invite. I think it sounds, I've seen some of your videos. I think I saw one where you're doing sort of the podcast, talking to your own laptop in the basement. You're like, wonder if anyone's watching sort of thing. It was funny. I thought it was funny, but anyways, tell us about the other self. Who is the other self? Who's my other self? Who's your other self?
Well,
or is that even related to anything?
That's a great question. We all have this little person inside of us, right? And they're like screaming to come out. And
mine comes out on this show, I'm pretty sure.
Justin, yours definitely comes on this show. Like the Justin Fox that I'm seeing right now on the show might be different among his kids, might be different in other, courses of life that you go, right? So, but there's this person at your core that is shouting. It's shouting, but it's very faint. And it's like, okay, I don't know if I want to do what we're doing right now in real life.
Right.
I want to do something else that really excites me. And I discovered my other self last year. And I always
Okay.
say that COVID, my COVID-19 happened in 2019.
Okay.
So what I mean by that, I went through some hardships. And through those hardships, I really discovered who I really wanted to be. It was the
Right.
first time that I was actually unemployed. And we can get into that like story later on.
Okay.
But
I'll ask questions as we go along to kind
yeah,
of guide it. Yeah. But let's definitely talk about that.
but
Your
that's
your
but that's where
COVID.
you
So you had
joined.
COVID-19 in 2019.
Yes,
So it actually
yes.
was a COVID-19 for you.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why when people were just like, "Oh my God, everyone's nervous, everyone's anxious," I was that way last year, and now I feel like I'm on fire right now.
Yeah.
Just doing a whole bunch of things. But the discovering your other self is really trying to come into your purpose, really tapping into who you truly are, and just speaking your truth.
Right. That's awesome. It's funny. It's funny you mentioned 2020. I actually was talking with my wife the other day. 2020 has been one of the best years in my life. Like, I mean, I've had other good years, and I mean, there's definitely been some negatives to it. And I mean, anyone watching, I hate you have to put the disclaimer like, don't at me with your negativity about, I get it. People are dying, or there's
Yeah.
problems in the world. But for me personally, 2019, it's funny you mentioned that, was actually a really difficult year. And I don't really talk about it on here, but more to shine the light on what you're saying. It is interesting that some people, it's almost like one person's trash is another man's treasure. Not saying that it's sort of that sort of connection, whereas, it's your own life experience and it's all relative, right? So I'll
Yeah.
ask the question. Let's go get right into it. What happened in 2019, and what, I don't necessarily need the specifics unless you want to get into it.
Mhm.
But what kind of helped you get out of that? Like finding your other self, but like, how did you find your other self, or what was that experience like?
So good question. And the way that it happened, so early in 2019, we're talking January.
Okay.
Um,
It's almost 2 years ago now.
yeah, I know, right? I left my current employer at the time,
Right.
and I'll leave them nameless at this point in time.
Okay. That's fine.
But I was there with them for about 5 years,
Okay.
and the reason why I left is because I felt like I was just trapped in a box.
Right.
And what do I mean by that? It's my creative ideas, my concepts, or just out of the box thinking were just not welcomed.
Right.
Everything had to be super structured. I remember getting told that we can't be first to market on certain things. We just follow. And in my mind, I'm just like, that doesn't really sit well with my values. I'm the
Right.
type of person that I like to innovate, I like to create. And because I felt that way for so long, I decided to leave.
Right.
Now, I didn't leave on the best terms. I left to go to another organization, but I didn't leave on the best terms, and I'll admit that. And when they say about, don't burn your bridges, it's true.
Right.
And I allowed myself to get super emotional at that point in time because the leadership that was guiding me at that employer just wasn't the best.
Did you feel sort of let down, or like they
I just
weren't let?
I felt let down on a number of different fronts, right?
Right.
And there's that saying where people, they don't really leave jobs, they leave bosses, right?
Right.
And that
Okay.
was just one encounter. Now, when I left to go to the other organization, I remember like leaving on a high, but unfortunately things didn't work out with that
Oh.
other organization,
Okay.
right? And I remember the day like it was yesterday. I remember getting off the GO train, and I remember this is the day that I was going to get the news that it
We're gonna
wasn't
tell
going to.
everyone where you live. Which station do you get off at?
So I live in Ajax,
Oh, Ajax.
Ontario.
Did
So
you
I
go to
get off
Pickering
at
or
Union.
Ajax? What's the GO train there? Ajax?
Ajax station.
Oh,
Ajax
okay.
station.
I live in Scarborough, so
Okay.
we can get off at a number of the exits there.
Shout out to
Shout
Scarborough.
out to Scarborough, yeah, Ajax, Pickering Town Center. I don't actually go out to Ajax all that often, but anyways, we kind of just drive right through Ajax to like.
But it's a nice little town. So anytime
is.
you're driving by, feel free to get off and then come visit me. We'll go for a coffee.
Yeah. Okay. There you go. There you go.
Right.
So take the GO train to Ajax. Visit Reggie. Coffee at the local coffee shop. So, anyways, so you get off the GO train. What was that feeling like? This is after like your first day, or after like.
So this is within my first week, and
week. Okay.
But it was the day that I was gonna get the news that this is not gonna work out, right?
Oh, okay.
So it's funny, Justin. Part of my discovery came from, and I'll talk a little bit about this too, is spirituality. So my connection with God, as an example. As I got off the GO train, I'm into Union Station. I'm walking. And I just felt like I got this message saying, take a picture of this instance. And the picture was a sea of people.
Right.
It's the rat race.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yes.
Walking from Union Station to go into the TTC to take the train now. But the image that I got was, do you really want to do this for the rest of your life? Do you want to be just in the rat race? Do you just want to be among the sea of people just going through the motions, right?
I've been there. I did that race for like, you actually took like a physical with your camera?
With my camera phone, and I saved it. And I got to the organization, right, that I'm first week in.
Right.
And they say, it's not going to work out.
Really? Wow.
So I'm devastated, and I'm like, heartbroken.
I'm going to take a side note, as an employer, as, someone who has worked with employees, that's a pretty big dick move. I shouldn't have said the big in that, but that's a dick move to like literally lure someone, arguably, I would assume, to come work with you from, a stable long-term role or position, and then to like have it like a week in, tell them it's not going to work out. Like, that's on them. That's not on you, I think. But I don't know. What was your lessons learned from that?
My lessons was,
You can swear here.
Okay, perfect. But my lessons were not to burn your bridge with the previous employer. It could bite you in the ass, and that's my swear word right there.
Right.
And it could get to that other employer that you're going to, which was a result of what happened. So there's obviously a lot.
So they knew people from, and that kind of got. That's even still though. Like I don't know if this is the tangent we want to go on for this conversation, but HR practices. But I think I think as a leader, and I mean, I've sort of, I'll sort of go back to your rat race. Believe me, I did 15 years of GO train to Union Station, working in the various towers that be for the powers that be, downtown Toronto. And I hated it, absolutely hated it. And that's kind of what, inspired me, 10 years or so ago to kind of do what you did, to look at that. But I think from an HR perspective, if you bring someone on as a leader, especially in a smaller organization, I mean, I get the bureaucracy of call it a Fortune 500 that you were previously working for. That's one thing. But if you're in a smaller organization, that leadership shouldn't be so fickle to be like, hey, we're going to hire, like, we're going to take you away from there, change your life, like literally like ask you to upheave everything, offer you, arguably greener, brighter pastures or whatever you want to call it, right? A new opportunity, maybe a vision that we see. Obviously, I'm assuming you went to multiple, interviews and meetings and, discussions to then turn around and have something that happened over here, impact, that's a huge flaw on their leadership, because as a leader, they should have been like, hey, you know what? Let's sit down and talk about it. Let's look at what happened. Let's talk about what your thoughts are on that. And let's work together, because we brought you in not just for one thing, but what we see as a whole. right? I mean, I'll just use my own experience. I've had people come in and they're like, they've applied for sales roles. They are absolutely not equipped for even like, interacting with people. And we've put them into other roles because we brought them in. We're a small organization and we can find, opportunities for them if it's maybe not directly what they were, hired specifically to do, right?
Yeah.
To just turn around and be like, you can't do this is, I think, a huge sort of issue with their leadership capabilities. Anyways, that's mine. So whoever's out there that is that person, it's on you. You screwed Reggie, not Reggie. Anyways,
well, that's the thing. It's like,
don't show this video with them because then they'll be like.
But at the same time, I got to take accountability for the way I left too.
Right. Okay. And no, and there's always taking accountability. Yep. But as a leader of a smaller organization, they shouldn't. The onus isn't on you. The onus is on them as a leader. Like I think straight up, the leadership in a company is huge, right? And if you bring people in, they're relying on you. I guess, the conglomerates, it's irrelevant. I mean, there's so many levels, right? Yeah. But in a small organization, the leader of that organization, the onus is on them, not on their employees. That's how I feel.
No, and trust me, your opinion is valid. Like I'll validate that 100%. And the thing is, there's just so much variables that we all have to take into consideration.
Right. And I don't know them all. So
and the thing is, you know what, Justin? I will say this. And my mom used to say this to me too. She goes, because she's very spiritual too. And if people have put you in a bad light or want to bring harm to you, understand that, again, we're spiritual, so God will just protect you and bring you into your purpose. If it wasn't for that instance, Justin,
we're not sitting here today.
We're not doing this.
Right.
At all.
Right. God works in mysterious ways, right? Blessing in disguise. Yeah. I mean, I use that word blessing in disguise quite often. And again, if certain things didn't go certain ways in 2019, I'm actually not even alive today. Right?
Oh, yeah?
Really? So literally, I was like, I won't get into it on here, but I was on life support, dead, inches from death in summer of 2019. Yeah. So that's why
you're right. So
2019 wasn't so good.
Geez. So you're in the same boat. Like obviously yours is a different degree in terms of life or death. And I would say yours is on a higher degree than what I want.
I'll announce it here because I've never actually said it on any of these shows. And this supposedly open. I'll be a little open. So wrong place, wrong time. I was at a bar. There was an altercation, supposedly. I got in the middle of it. Shouldn't have gotten in the middle of it. The guy asked me whether I was a police officer or not. I said no. He pulled a gun and shot me 3 times and almost killed me. Once in the stomach, once in the groin, once in the back and the hip. Shattered my hip, severed my arteries, and tore open my stomach.
Wow.
Yeah. So I was in a coma on life support for a week. So anyways, I don't really want to get into that. But that was 2019. Summer of 2019. I didn't walk for the rest of 2019.
Okay, so I know you don't want to go deep into it, but here's what I'll tell you because it's all part of this.
And we were forced to sell our house due to another issue with another problem we had in business from 2018. So we made the choice to kind of downsize. So 2019, not a great year.
Jeez. Okay, so I'll tell you this.
But we wouldn't be sitting here if that didn't happen.
Yes.
Potentially, right?
But here's the thing. This is what it's all about. This is what the program, like your initial question about discovering your other self. It's these examples right here. It's the life experiences that we all go through. Now, the mere fact that, remember, you said you didn't want to really talk about this. But that's the whole. I know we're gonna talk about. But that's the whole crux of the show. Trust me, you're playing right into what this Discover Your Other Self program is all about.
Right.
It's really getting into real conversations and having, those challenges brought to light, and then understanding how one person overcame those challenges. So that's the overarching concept behind it. But I know I'm going to be respectful. But I'll say this to you, Justin.
It was hard. I mean, now that the cat's out of the bag, it was hard. I mean, I'm obviously not. I was out actually celebrating that we had an investor putting money into backers, right? Mm-hmm. So like we were raising capital at the time, and I was out, had a couple of drinks, and probably wrong place, wrong time. Shouldn't have been there. It was late at night, and yeah, it's an unfortunate circumstance, but blessing in disguise. It made me reflect on where I was in life, what my goals in life were. Obviously I have a young family, where I prioritized my time. I had already given up the rat race. I was already like years into the entrepreneurial journey, but it definitely gave me perspective on what's important. And, things like I was already going to be taking the kids out of, daycare and school this summer, regardless of COVID. I had already planned to have them spend the whole summer with like the boys and I just kind of hanging out. I would be their day camp leader, and we'll go to Ontario Place together and hang out when at a young age, right? So I'd already kind of, made my mind up that I was going to do more of that, sort of family orientated type of things. I guess I can't even speak coherent sentence there, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I was looking at that as the goal. But let's talk about you. We'll cap it there. Enough of Justin's. I'll open up on your show. On the Discover Your Other Self.
What's funny about this is because I'm so used to asking people the questions, so it always,
you've just flipped the script, right?
Yeah, it'll always come back to you.
so I'm flipping the script back to you. So tell us. So okay, let's go back. Union Station. You take the picture. You get in there. Your leadership has failed you. They've drank the Kool-Aid from a previous bridge you've burnt, however you want to term it. Now what? What happens? Like how do you react to that? Did you go get breakfast in the path?
I was legit crying like inside.
Oh yeah.
Like, oh my God. Like I've just felt like, like what is this? Because I've never been in a situation in my entire career where it never been laid off, never been fired, nothing.
Right.
So this really hit me deep because I've always prided myself to be a high performer.
Right. Exemplary kind of employee.
Yeah. So I was like on my face and I immediately went across the street to go visit one of my friends and we went out for coffee because I just had to tell tell him the news. And he's been in a similar situation where, he's been laid off but this is just due to organizational cutbacks.
Right.
But the first thing he said to me is he started smiling. And I'm like, why are you smiling? He started laughing. He goes, trust me, this is going to be the best thing that ever happened to you.
Right.
And I was like, what? I mean, like, here I am, like, his name is Damian Wilson.
Okay.
And I'm like, Damian, I'm like, how are you laughing at it? He goes, no, just trust me.
So he's obviously, like you said, he's been through it. He knows that it's going to sort of change your whole, it's kind of like, I think Mike, I had a really interesting conversation with Mike Dunn, right? About sort of his journey, right? And, one of the things he said, and it maybe relates to what you're saying is, he said that if you would have asked the Mike Dunn 2 years ago, if he was working hard or like how, life was and what the life of an entrepreneur was like, he would have sort of like scoffed at an entrepreneur. It's easy, blah, 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 blah. And like would have thought that he was doing, the God's work and, life was so difficult, right? Mm-hmm. With what he was doing. But now fast forward 2 years later, he's like, fuck, boy, was I ever wrong to have ever thought that way, right? Having lived experience, right? Exactly. So obviously Damian came up with that sort of experience saying, I know where you're at. Where you're going to get to though, because of this learning is going to definitely change you. So that's interesting. So yeah, how did that work though? How did that work out for you?
So it's at first I took in what he mentioned and it was,
you weren't sure what he said until a year later.
You're like, talking shit, right? You're talking shit right now. Like, dude, I have bills to pay.
Right.
I got mortgage, all this other stuff. Anyways, I took it in stride. There was times where I was just like, man, I was like in tears. I'm like and I was at this point, I was starting to take cold showers because I was looking at the Wim Hof method. And I don't know if you know Wim Hof,
I'm not familiar.
but
No.
you should try it out. I challenge you to try out. But
Is it like Scandinav
means,
Spa?
sorry?
Scandinav Spa?
No, 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 no. He's a
Hot,
guy.
cold, hot, cold?
They call him the Iceman, and you're just supposed to take cold showers to really
Like,
heighten your state,
right,
and
right, right.
it's an anti-inflammatory.
Okay.
But that helped me build the mindset, right? So I'd be fighting these cold showers. I'd be writing stuff on the walls, like legit. My freaking like wall looked like a crime scene because I would put like these post-it notes, and I'd have all these goals and I have all these ideas. But through those dark times came so much light. For example, I developed 2 MVPs for an app. I still haven't, developed the app yet, but I never knew I had these ideas or the ability to actually put together like a tech spec for these
Right.
2 different apps. And then I built this program for universities and colleges, which is now really getting into the big swing of things. We're getting, more traction. UFT has bought into it, as well as Ryerson. What else? I developed my own website because I was like, okay, let me just do consulting. So I did that for a little bit.
Right.
Talked about the idea of doing a podcast, which we just started this year. So a lot of things from 2019 was a big setup for all the things that have been happening in 2020. And as you mentioned, this is one of the best years for you, and this is one of the best years for me.
Right.
Now, when we're talking about discover your other self, through the hardships, through the dark times, I was able to uncover what my talents were. I knew that I could connect with people. I had this natural talent, and I just leveraged that as my ability to just create programs, sell that to colleges and universities. And the program that I developed is called Open Concept, and it's teaching the kids what's not in the average textbook. Right. So what I mean by that, it's, well, how do you network effectively? What does managing up mean? How do I deal with a bad boss? Because they don't talk about the bad boss. It's really and truly preparing them for their next stage in life. Because when we were students, no one taught us about all this, right? So
I took phys ed in university, and so I learned about dance and Laban notation. So I didn't learn any of that. But anyways, that's on a side note.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's an interesting moment there. So you mentioned you're sort of sitting with your buddy there. He's saying, hey, this is going to be, you're going to look back on this, as something that sort of a monumental moment that changed your life. I mean, I think if you could say to, and I can kind of envision it, but if you could say to somebody who's like in that moment that you were in there today, let's say, like what is your next like week like look like, or your next like month, like what, like you mentioned that you started to really get into things, but like how did you kind of get into, like you mentioned the sticky notes, which I think is a really cool idea to really like, take your idea, put it up there, and then the more prioritized ones you might pull off the wall a few more times and really start to work on. But like what were some of the like very specific tactical kind of like strategic things that you did in that, let's say, first 7 days, month, week, month, whatever? Like what were some of those things that you did?
The first 7 days was a week of mourning.
Besides just like wake up late and
like, oh man, I don't want to get up. I don't want to get out of bed. I don't want to shave.
So once that happened, how did you get out of that? I mean, obviously it's kind of like, what are the 7 stages of mourning? What is it? Of 7 stages where it's like refusal, admit, like there's sort of like whatever, I forget what the 7
you're in denial,
right? Or there's like all of those different
acceptance.
I forget what the term is, 7 stages of something, but
no, that's a really good question. So I'm glad you brought it there, because that's getting into the specifics that people really need to understand.
Yeah.
So the first week, as I mentioned, it was really tough. Really had to figure out how to come to terms with it. I was so angry at myself. I was so angry at my past employer, and then my my
most
present
recent past.
employer.
Yeah.
And I was just angry, furious. But, I also had some friends and family that really helped me throughout that week, and were just trying to assure me that, things are going to be okay. And I don't think if it wasn't for them to give me that support, I don't know if I would have been able to get back on my feet as fast as I did, because
Right.
I had a friend that said, you're not going to be in bed. No, you're going to get up. You're going
Right.
to use it as a learning experience, and you're going to start to take action. One thing that I immediately took action towards was after the 7 days of, the morning, the cold showers, and like crying in the shower, and you're just like, what is this? This is not me. I'm better than this.
Right.
I got myself up and just took action. And I know people would want specifics, but when it comes to action, it just means doing.
Yeah.
What I did is I just reached out to one of those headhunters,
Okay.
a recruiter, and I was like, hey, I need help. I'm, back on the job market. And throughout my journey being spiritual, I had like these spiritual guides along the way. And these are just random people would come in and out of my life for specific reasons. One particular person that came into my life was the recruiter.
Okay.
And this recruiter that I remember, her name is Deborah Sharp. I remember her like it was yesterday. She looked at my resume and she freaking kicked my fucking ass. Like, what I mean, looked at my resume and said, this is shit, this is shit, this is shit. Remove this, remove that. Put more specifics around results in your resume. Take out all this fluff, this and that. Without her beating me up, and I was already felt like I was just already discouraged. Right. I was lacking confidence. She shot me even she was shooting my confidence even more.
Right.
So I took her advice and a recommendation.
I feel bad for your confidence because I know what that's like.
Yeah, torn. So I took her advice, applied it to the resume, and no word of a lie, I would start getting a lot more calls based on this. The jobs that she put me in for, one was like, I think it was Superior Gas. And I was just like, I don't know if I want to do gas, but I went for the interview anyways, obviously to get back into practice. But
just out of curiosity, I mean, just from my own perspective, were you, because you're obviously, your confidence is low, were you, even though she sort of beat you up a bit on the resume and to kind of spruce up, were you thinking you were not qualified for maybe some of the positions that she was putting you up for? Like, I'm just wondering, like, who perceived your capabilities higher, you or her, in that context? Just out of curiosity, if there even was a discrepancy.
No.
Like, were you down on yourself a little bit, or like, what were your thoughts?
I would say confidence was down in the fact that, like, I knew I could always perform any sort of job. I knew my skills were transferable no matter what. But just confident in enough that, am I going to be able to find a job quick enough where I could actually just satisfy my bills? That's all I was worried about, right? I was never worried about the job, because I always knew that I'm going, just based on my makeup and my DNA, I knew I could always figure things out. You just throw me in there, and I'll be the first to admit, I don't know what you're talking about, but I'll always come back with an answer later on.
You'll figure it out. Yeah. Cool. Okay.
And
no, sorry. Yeah, no, go continue. I don't want to.
And I know she was more concerned. I don't know if you're going to be able to do this job. And I'm like, no.
So it was the opposite. I was thinking maybe because your confidence was beat up, you might, maybe aiming lower, especially trying to get that quick money, or like something done today, and maybe sort of setting your sights at, hey, what can I do right now, versus, obviously if you have more time and you're in a comfortable position, you can obviously then strive for higher, but you were ready to aim for the stars.
Ready to go back in, yeah.
Okay.
And that's the thing. I always say that one word that would describe me is resilient. And that's what I always put in my bios whenever I'm doing a workshop, because it doesn't matter what I'm faced with. I'll always, strive for greater. And another thing, just to be specific, that actually helped me through the 7 days was listening to tapes, listening to, video on YouTube. So I listened to Les Brown. I remember through that.
He's the sales guy? Is he?
Les Brown is a motivational speaker.
Motivational, right? Yeah.
Motivational speaker. I would listen to Joel Osteen for spiritual. And then somebody introduced me to David Goggins. And I remember as I was still unemployed, there's that phase because you can't just find
Isn't
a
he
job.
like the strongest man in the world or the toughest man in the world or something?
he he acts like
Because
it,
he's
and he
been like a SEAL,
Navy SEAL,
Navy
yeah,
SEAL, like
yeah,
all the different, like he's done like all the trainings and some of them twice or something like
yes,
that, right?
yes,
Yeah,
yes. And
yeah,
I remember I broke my hand during this period too. So on top of not having a job, I like broke my hand, and I love CrossFit, so I had to do CrossFit with one hand. I would go for jogs, and it was crazy, Justin. I would see like this, and what gave me motivation, I would see this three-legged dog. This guy was walking his three-legged dog, and here I was with my cast, and I'd be like, "Yo, if the dog could do this, I could do this."
You're
Right?
equating yourself. Yeah, you're like, hey, if he could do it, I could do it, right?
And I'm listening to Goggins in my ear, and Goggins is like, "Stop being a bitch, just freaking run," right? And I'm just running. All these things just started happening, and even when I had my broken hand, here's the switch that kind of went off to change my mindset. I remember I went to Walmart with my broken hand, and I parked my car. I was just chilling in there, just on my phone. Another car parked right beside me. And in this car, I look over, and it was my previous tenant, that for a property that I owned. And I haven't talked to her in like a couple of years. And I look over, I'm like, oh no, it's Kara. I don't want to talk to Kara right now. Just, you're having one of those days, you just don't feel like talking or engaging.
Yeah.
So I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, let her go first. Let her go into Walmart first. I let her go in. So she goes in, I eventually follow, and I'm doing my thing, shopping cart and all. All of a sudden I hear later on in one aisle, "Reggie, is that you?" I'm like, "Ah, hey, Kara," one of those things.
Hopefully Kara's a lovely person, I'm sure.
Kara
This has nothing to do with Kara.
Kara is an awesome person because Kara is part of one of the spiritual guides that actually helped turn the tide for me.
Okay.
And so she goes, "We need to catch up, and we should go for coffee." We went for coffee, and she asked me,
So
"Hey,
I didn't know where the story was going. I just didn't want to disparage Kara in the
no,
video.
even if Kara, if you're watching, I don't like you. I love you."
Oh, there you go. Yeah, there you go. So that was a changing moment. So now you get to hang out with her, or you got to connect with her, or reconnect with her.
Connect with her, and then she asked me to go. She goes, "Hey, do you want to?" She goes, "You know who Tony Robbins is?" I'm like, "Yeah, I heard of him." She goes, "Yeah, do you want to go check him out in Dallas?" And here I am, like, I know I shouldn't be going anywhere because I just, I'm without a job, but something told me to just say yes. So I said, "Sure, why not?"
Okay.
And from then, a couple months after, I went to Tony Robbins, and I thought it was going to be a cult. I really did. I was like, why are all these people hugging each other? This is a little too much. They don't know each other. Why are they hugging? Stop that. Stop that.
Right.
But he really honed in on a lot of mindset tricks and tips on how you could just really, truly get what you desire out of life. And there's a lot of mantras. There's a lot of meditation. I still do his meditation to this day, every day, called priming. And that kind of really gave me the foundation that I needed to really take it to the next level.
Interesting. So I love not to oversimplify everything you just said, because there's obviously every person's going to go through that journey in a different path than what you said, right? But the first thing you said, and I say it sort of in a different way, but take action, or we always say get started, right? Like that first step and that momentum, right, is going to kind of carry you, right? So you, like you say, you started jogging again or doing your CrossFit, obviously had a broken hand, but, and then you're out, you meet up with old friends, you take a risk to kind of go out to Tony Robbins. So these little steps, all, obviously you're, the recruiter, obviously influential and kind of getting you. So these little things that kind of built you up, right, to where you felt, you could build up your confidence. So the one thing though I will say is I'm going to ask the question, at what point did you stop looking for a job, and start building your future sort of, have you even come to that conclusion where you're no longer looking for employment and you're now kind of your own employer? I guess, I don't know, that's not the way I want to word it, but you know what I mean? You're on your own
Yeah.
entrepreneurial journey. Like, was there like a point where you can maybe now look back on, or are you working towards that point? I don't know, like, where are you on that point where you're no longer looking for that job? And when was
So
that?
yeah, no. So I would say last year when I was really just hardcore looking, I stopped at a certain point because I did find an actual job. But that process of looking for a job, you know, when they say it rains, it pours. When it rains, it pours.
Right.
You know, I remember getting multiple offers at one point.
Okay.
I remember getting an offer from Freedom Mobile, Ashley Madison.
Oh yeah.
The Ashley Madison one was very interesting. Um, and then 360 Insights, where I'm working right now. But I actually had to turn down the Freedom job to take the Ashley Madison job. And in between taking the Ashley Madison job, 360 Insights reached out to me. So I now have more offers to play with. And 360 Insights was closer to my house, is 12 minutes away, versus my previous employer, you know, the one that I was with for 5 years, I was an hour and a half away. So I'm like, oh man,
Right.
this is going to change my lifestyle altogether. So I decided to go to 360 Insights. I was even negotiating my salary while I was on vacation because I went to the Dominicans. I just needed to get away. And here I am in the Dominican just negotiating my salary. So they obliged, and I'm here at 360 right now, full time, 9 to 5.
Okay.
They're a really cool organization. They actually promote and allow you to actually just be you. So there's a lot of people at that organization that have, you know, call it side hustles or side businesses, and they don't frown upon that, which is why I'm able to
Interesting.
do the
I didn't
workshops.
realize that you were still with an organization.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So
Okay.
it's
So
like,
what do they do? Like, what is their core business?
so they are in the world of channel incentives. So they're a software company. They've built a platform that manages and tracks sales activity through sales incentives. So let's just say, for example, you are Samsung. You got an array of TVs being sold at Best Buy. Maybe you want to offer up a sales incentive to drive more sales. They would track all that activity within their database, make sure that all the data and insights is available for Samsung to obviously look at the performance and look for ways to improve performance,
Right.
gain market share, and so forth.
Interesting. So what do you do with them?
So I'm the director of marketing. So
So
I
you are the
am,
director of marketing there.
yeah,
Okay.
director of marketing there. So
Okay.
I work there 9 to 5. I also have my own personal branding agency. That's pretty much my side hustle. So doing coaching there with some clients, if they want to, you know, take it to the next level in terms of their career, or working with other brands. I just recently partnered up with the Hive Local in Whitby, which is a shared working space. Obviously, they need more clients, right? Consider being COVID-19, they're trying to drive traffic to their
Right.
location, give people a change of scenery, not just work from home. So I'll work with Sam, who's the owner, to figure out ways that we could drive more impressions and drive more awareness of his facility. Uh, I host the show, Discover
Yeah.
Your Other Self, every Thursday. I also am a workshop facilitator. So I've built a program for U of T as well as Ryerson. So last night I was with the students of U of T and giving them tips and tricks on personal branding and how to stand out. And again, teaching them everything that's not in the textbook so that they could be 10 steps ahead of their competition.
Right. Interesting. So I guess, so my question was kind of, so you've kind of chosen both the sort of consulting and sort of on your own doing that type of work, and then you also have, you know, the ability to go in and work for 360 Insights. So do you see yourself kind of continuing down that path? Because this is interesting, actually, because a lot of people that jump into the entrepreneurial, they have to make ends meet. You have to feed, your family, right? You've got a young man, he's not paying rent, so you got to feed him, right? So, where do you, this is probably a different answer or question, I guess, not answer, question than I'll ask most. Where do you see that going a year, 2 years, 5 years? Like, do you see yourself still in, sort of moving up with, organizations like 360 Insights, or do you see yourself moving out into the more, and you can answer however you want, obviously, to be politically correct and not burn any bridges, because someone will watch. But, what are your thoughts? Like, where do you see maybe the entrepreneurial journey for yourself, if at all?
Yeah, like I see it in the horizon, the entrepreneurial path. I see it in the horizon. I also, and this is going to be very different for you, as you mentioned.
I mean, there's obviously many different lived experiences, and people go different directions, right?
I would say that I have the 360 culture is extremely different.
Right.
One that is really unique, and I would say it's very family oriented. I respect the leader, and I respect the culture that he has established. And this is what I'll tell you. There's a number of different things that I'm working on in the horizon as well. So for me to get to that entrepreneurial path, definitely want to do that. But there's also something that tells me that I need to feed back to 360 somehow. It's a feeling that I have because they brought me into their organization. They believed in me. They've invested in me. Like, there's no other organization that has really invested in me like they have. Gave me the exposure. They've had me host a number of different events. They've promoted me within a short time period. But there's
so do you think they were the leader that was lacking in that very temporal 7-day job? Like that's like, it sort of goes back to what we were talking about earlier, right? The leadership that you've seen with 360 Insights versus the leadership there, where they were, they didn't invest in you. They were ready to just sort of toss you to the side, whether rightfully or wrongfully. I mean, that they weren't willing to kind of invest the time and effort and energy into helping you succeed.
You hit the nail right on the head. So what I would say to you is that, for example, if I take a look at the workshop that I facilitate, my passion is drawing me to that.
Okay.
I have visions where I want to be able to scale that in a manner where it's it's going global. Like, I'm actually in the process of actually I interface with interpreters, right, or an interpreter right now, and she's actually translating my material into French for me and into various different languages so that we could start to penetrate different markets. But what I mean by giving back to 360 is that if you're really paying attention to what I'm doing, I'm harvesting and building up talent.
Right.
There's skills. A struggle out there for top talent.
Right.
I'm building relationships with these students. You don't think if I do decide to go on that entrepreneurial journey with this, with these workshops, that I could easily go back to 360 and say, hey, Jason, I have a pool of talent that I know that is accessible and be valuable to your organization, which is 360.
Right.
To integrate into your
so it's kind of like you're seeing sort of multiple aspects or like angles, I guess, of sort of the same problem potentially.
Yes, exactly.
Interesting. Cool. Well, I appreciate you being on the show. I look forward to actually joining you guys tomorrow. I'm not sure what to expect, but we'll so shout out. I don't know. Can people join? Where can they find it? Of course,
everybody could join.
Where can they find it?
So it's going to be broadcasted on LinkedIn Live every Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Follow me on LinkedIn, Reggie Waterman, and I will send you an invite, which will give you access to the LinkedIn Live event.
There you go. Awesome. So check out Reggie on LinkedIn. That's how we connected at some point over time here. I'll end it with one question. It's kind of a question that I've morphed it to two questions. So it's kind of like a choose your own adventure, right? Kind of which path do you want to go on? So the first question is if there was one word or one piece of advice that you could go back and give to a younger Reggie, what would that one word or piece of advice be? So that's option A. Option B is you're standing on a cliff, I guess. I'll kind of change it a bit. Or you're in the eye of a tornado. You're about to, like, life's going to end for you. I'm on the other end here. I'm going to give one message to the world, your family, friends. What would that message be? You can choose. Okay. They're kind of two crazy scenarios, but yeah, go ahead.
So the one word that comes to my mind would be fail.
Fail. Okay. That's the word you're going to give to younger you.
My younger self.
Fail. And what, yep. So expand on that a little bit.
So I would say don't be scared to fail, because it's through the failures that you learn and you grow and you develop. I know a lot of us are, scared of failure, and that kind of impedes our ability to take on various risks. But, with no risk, there's no reward, as that old adage goes, right? So when it comes to failing, don't be scared of it. Like, for example, right now, I also do, I signed up to a talent agency this year too. So that's another.
So you're going to do some acting or
or
modeling or what?
Yeah.
Or stand-up comedian? All three?
Both.
Okay,
so
I want to see the stand-up comedian side.
No, I'm not a stand-up comedian.
Okay.
But I'll tell you this, and I've told somebody, I love the no's. I've embraced the no's. I love the rejection because it's God's protection. So at the end of the day, it's building my strength so that I'm going to be prepared for that one big break. It may not be on the acting front, but it could be on the business front.
Right.
But that it all intertwines together.
And that resiliency, like you said before, right?
Yeah.
The resiliency. You're building up that resiliency. Well, Reggie, appreciate it. Thank you very much. Continued success, obviously. Good luck. And people, check out Reggie on LinkedIn. Can they get on Twitter, Facebook, any other
LinkedIn,
LinkedIn is the way to go. Like, you do the lives, right? And when do you do those? You do the Thursdays. You also put up some of your podcast stuff on LinkedIn as well, right? Some of your videos and content.
Yeah, some videos. Yeah.
Right. Okay, cool. Awesome. So check out Reggie. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. It's been awesome. So everyone else, this is the first ever one take powered by episodes. Powered by backers. This is one take powered by backers. Reggie, again, thank you very much. It's awesome. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Justin. I had a
Cheers.
blast.
Yeah, we'll see you again soon.
OMG, baby, tell them.